Today I'd like to share with you my process for creating this pastel painting of Montrose Estuary Basin. It started life as a plein air painting and then I brought it indoors and finished it off. So I'd like to share with you some of my thoughts about what was important to capture on location and what could easily be finished off with photographic reference. If we haven't met before, I'm Pamela. I'm an artist living on the northeast coast of Scotland. My favourite subjects are animals and landscapes, and I mainly work in soft pastels. I sometimes bring out the pencils and paints. My channel is about being inspired by nature to create better art, so if you'd like to see more, subscribe. Today's subject is Montrose Estuary Basin. It's going to be a reoccurring character in my artwork and here on my channel because I'm absolutely fascinated by it. So I'll give it a little introduction. Montrose has an enclosed tidal estuary basin. It's my favourite part of living in Montrose, a small town sandwiched between the North Sea and this huge expanse of tidal mudflats. A large portion of the basin is a nature reserve. I don't know if Montrose is unique, but it does feel special to be surrounded by nature and so aware of the ebb and flow of the tides. The passing seasons are also strongly marked by different species of birds visiting the basin. The most audible of these are the migrating pink-footed geese, which arrive in their tens of thousands each autumn. One day last summer, I spent an afternoon with my baby at the Montrose Basin Visitor Centre, a comfortable way to watch birds when you have small children. I was happy that I'd had a chance to see the visiting ospreys, but I wasn't sure I'd left enough time to use the art materials I'd brought with me. When baby fell asleep again on the walk down to Rossi Island, I took my chance, but I knew that I wouldn't have an interrupted time to linger over a piece of artwork and I would likely have to finish it at home. I start by trying out different composition ideas, though I might have ended up with something different again, because I don't think it really looks like any of these. I liked the red boat and the clouds, but what really drew me to the view was the shimmer of light reflecting off the wet sand and water left by the retreating tide. Once I had done a simple sketch of the view, the next stage was blocking in the main areas of colour. I blend the sky with a piece of pipe installation. This is a great tool for blending large areas, and I picked up the tip from Karen Margulis, an American pastel artist who's a great teacher. I'll share her channel in the description of this video below. Fairly early on, I wanted to block in some darker values to help me judge the light and middle tones better. Then I started to block in a basic colour for the mudflats. They're a complicated subject because some bits were wet mud, others were pools of water left by the tide. I wanted to capture the general impression of shimmering light and glistening mud, but it would have been easy to get bogged down in the details. I knew I didn't have much time, so I had to decide what was important to capture on location and what could be fixed from photo reference back home. Cameras are great at capturing details, so I decided not to worry about the red boat, which I hadn't drawn accurately, or the foreground. But I knew the photos I took weren't going to be so great at capturing the effect of light shimmering across the mud and water, and I wanted to capture the colours and values, and if I could, the perception of depth, because photos can make everything a bit flat. Unfortunately, I'm missing a chunk of footage at this point. Baby woke up and so I switched off the camera to seat him, then realised I could work on a little bit one-handed. Thought, oh, I'll just do a little bit over there, and I kept going. It's a shame I don't have the footage, but I'm glad I did continue to work on it, because otherwise it would have been left at a very basic stage. Back at home, it's important to take some time to look at the picture, ideally after a break so you can look at it with fresh eyes. First, I thought about what worked well. I liked the colours and the impression of light on the water and mud, so I decided to leave that area alone. The first change I wanted to make was to make the boat more accurate to the reference. It didn't need to be precise, as it wasn't the main focus and I wasn't aiming for photorealism, but I wanted to get the proportions closer, so it looked like the one the locals would be familiar with. So I looked at the photos I'd taken and started to correct the size and shape of it and add some details. Next, I started to clean up the edges of my paper that were a bit uneven from the masking paper on location. A lot of these would be covered by the edge of a mount anyway when framed, but it's nice to having it look a bit more finished. And then I went back to tightening up the edges on the boat, grounding it in the water with a shadowy reflection. The other big change I wanted to make to the picture was moving the post and buoy, which I'd originally made too big, too dark, and I'd also placed them too close to the centre, which disrupted the flow of the painting. I decided to place them less prominently in the left-hand corner. This placement I hope stops the viewer's eye from it going off the page. Next, I spent some time on the foreground. I wanted a dark base to keep the main attention on the light in the midground of the picture and to create depth. But I also want to create a bit of sparkle with the tall grasses and wildflowers where they were catching the light to echo the shimmer of light on the mudflats and water. If you'd like to see more videos about creating art inspired by nature, such as my Plein Air landscape series, subscribe and hit the bell so that you don't miss the next episode. If you did miss the previous episode, I've got a link here for you now.